Should we do a clap just in case?
Just for the mark?
Yeah.
Okay, you do it.
Okay. Well, you have to do it too.
Okay, on 3?
Yeah.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Okay.
All right, so
Hey.
this is episode 0 of Scary Movie Nights
Yeah,
podcast.
the
pilot.
Ah!
The intro, if you will. I love
Yeah.
it.
Exciting.
I'm very excited. So first we're going to introduce who we are. My name is Joan.
And I'm Mar.
And we decided to start this podcast because we just love scary movies.
And we like hanging out with each other and talking about scary movies.
That's right. So we decided, why not? And then
not?
here we are.
Yeah.
Love it. It's a vibe.
Yeah, it is.
I love it.
Should we go into like more background, like what we do?
Sure, why not? You go first.
Do we want people to know what we do?
I don't know. Do we? I mean, it might be pretty obvious eventually, but
Yeah.
So I'm an educator.
And I'm an educator.
Yay! That's how we met. We worked at the same place. And currently I'm teaching Spanish, so that's really fun.
And I'm teaching biology and AP Environmental Science.
Yeah, so we got a couple teachers here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that, I think, when we were working together.
Yeah.
But now, almost, I feel like this podcast also is as an excuse for like hanging out, since I'm
Yeah.
not working at the same school anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool.
And
But
luckily we were able to like transcend the barrier of like work colleagues.
yeah,
And then we were like work friends where we would hang out at work. But
Yeah.
now we're like actual friends.
actual friends. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And like when we first met, because I think I had been working a year or two prior to you coming in
At that school.
at that school. And when I met you, I was like, oh, she doesn't know it yet, but we're going to be best friends. And so I'm really glad that we got to be close. And now we're hanging out outside.
Yay!
Woo! Okay. So just to kind of start us off on, this is kind of like an episode 0. So we're not necessarily going to be deep diving into any specific movies, but we just kind of wanted to give people like a sense of who we are, what kind of movies we like, of course, like in the context of horror, and then what you can expect from the podcast moving forward.
Yeah,
So,
this is the exposition.
exposition,
Yeah.
the background, the lore, if
The
you will.
lore! Yes.
So I guess the first thing would be to kind of tell the audience what drew us into horror movies, or horror in general. So Mar, would you like to start with that?
I think for me it was just, I guess, the feeling of fear and anxiety.
The adrenaline rush?
adrenaline rush
Yeah.
that I got from watching horror movies. I mean, we're going to talk about our first horror movie in just a second, but that feeling, at first I really didn't like it. And then slowly I kind of started to like enjoy it more and more, and I kind of like craved that feeling a little bit more. And I love when a horror movie or a scary movie makes me feel that, where I'm like, oh, like I'm a little scared. Like,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna sleep with the lights on tonight. Like, I love
Yeah.
that feeling. It's I don't know why it's good, but I like it.
That's really cool. Do you remember like what age you were when you started to be like, ooh, I kind of like this?
Oh, I think like late middle school, early high school.
Okay.
Was when, because like I would watch them maybe with friends because I didn't want to seem like a weenie, but I didn't.
So they peer pressure you into watching
I
scary
didn't
movies.
necessarily enjoy them until later, and then I started watching movies, and I was like, oh, okay, now it's more enjoyment and less fear than it
Yeah.
used to be.
Yeah.
What about you?
That's fun. So low key actually wrote a whole poem about this. I don't know if you remember. So
remember.
At the school that we together worked at, we had this like poetry cafe where like teachers and students could sign up for that to perform. Mm-hmm. So I was like, what am I gonna write a poem about? Because I was peer pressured into doing that.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let me write a poem about something that I really love and something I'm really passionate about, which is horror movies. And so I started like reflecting on why that was. Like, why do I like to feel scared? Because usually, sure, people are adrenaline junkies, etc., but why do people enjoy that kind of thing? And so for me, I kind of traced it back to my early childhood. I'm from Honduras, and my grandfather used to own a ranch up there, or down there, I guess, up in the mountains. And he used to tell us scary stories around the bonfire. And so I think those are really fun memories. Like, we'd gather together as a family, and we just scare the crap out of each other with with like mythology and stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so like the shadows would come alive, and it'd just be like so scary because it was like in the middle of the mountains, no electricity really.
Yeah.
Just a bonfire in the woods essentially, and it was just like such a great, cool feeling.
Oh my god, I love that.
Yeah, and I think I carried that throughout my childhood, adolescence, and like into adulthood, honestly.
Has that like mythology like stayed with you? Because like I'm Latina as well. I'm from Colombia, and for me like La Llorona was like terrifying.
Oh
or,
yeah.
Like el cucuy, like all these like duendes, like all these things that people would talk about. But my family wouldn't like openly talk about them. We're Catholics, so it's like a little bit
so it's
weird.
Like
But like at school, like I went to a Catholic school in Colombia, and people would like tell these scary stories, and I was like,
yeah. No, actually, Duendes, La Llorona, like all of those stories were exactly the ones we would tell too. Like El Hombre Lobo, like the werewolf.
whoa.
Yeah, it's crazy because like my grandfather's ranch, like his main house was next to a river. And so like the legend of La Llorona was she drowned her children in a river, so if you heard her crying, you better like leave, or because she's gonna drown you too. And so that was like that mythology especially loomed very near to us.
That's crazy.
And I think it was also a cautionary tale for the children to like not go into the river at night. And it worked. It worked. We did not go down to that river at night because like that's something like if we snuck out there or whatever, we could drown, etc.
Yeah, for sure.
So because we would regularly play in the river, but only during the daytime. So that's something really interesting too about horror that I love, is like ultimately a lot of horror comes down to cautionary tales and like just like what is the perspective of like, I don't know, to be a little like bougie about it, like the human existence and all that good stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah, so like getting deep, but
The psychology.
The psychology of that. The psychology of that. But yeah, so what was the first horror movie that you watched that you remember?
The first horror movie that I remember watching was Chucky.
Oh no.
And I was
scary.
Definitely way too young to be watching that movie at the time, but also, like, my family was very, like, tight-knit in Colombia. This was when I was living there. And I was, like, a middle cousin. Like, I wasn't the youngest cousin, but I wasn't one of the older kids. And the older kids were watching Chucky. And I was with my dad, because I think my mom would definitely not have let this happen. But my dad was just hanging out, and I wanted to hang out with the older kids and watch this scary movie, and it was scarring. I think that's why for such a long time I was like, I would kind of like avoid scary movies and didn't enjoy them as much, just because I remember like being actually like really scared and like having to sleep with my mom. And for a really long time I've always been like very like nervous or like straight up scared of like the supernatural. And I went to Catholic school, and so like the Holy Ghost, for one, is one thing that I believed in, and with that comes like, I don't know, I feel like there's a bunch of religious trauma there. So I believed in all of those things, and it was all like really scary to me, and so I think that movie did not help. Oh, we got
definitely
incoming.
Not. Oh my gosh, she wants some popcorn.
She does want some popcorn.
Olive Garden, no, please.
No, okay, ma'am.
We're gonna put the kitty down.
Yeah.
Meow. Okay.
Meow.
I definitely understand that. So I also grew up Catholic, and like I feel like demonology, the devil, like all of that supernatural things you can't see, especially paired with like some of the guilt, that they teach you to have.
Yes.
I think all of that kind of comes together in the like, the supernatural is something to be feared at times. Not only that, but like especially after The Exorcist, a lot of Catholic symbolism was associated with demonology and scary stuff like that. You know what I mean? That one of the reasons why I think as a society, maybe some people, include, this is the case for me anyway, like going into like a church alone is like
spooky,
a little spooky, right? Because it's like, is the Holy Ghost in the room with us right now? Like, so yeah,
that was definitely I always felt a little bit like unnerved and like uneasy in churches as well. Or like there was nuns in my Catholic school, and I was always like, I don't know, like they creeped me out. I did not like them, and I don't know where that all comes from. I think like religious trauma and like that fear. But Chucky was my first scary movie. What about yours? What was yours?
So I'm gonna be real honest. I have a garbage memory, like garbage. Yeah. So I don't necessarily remember the first scary movie I ever watched. I guess it didn't traumatize me enough like that. But one of the first scary movies to truly scare me was like this Honduran indie film. It's called Almas de la Medianoche. And I forgot what it's even about, really. I think it's like a group of teens like open some portal to hell, and they're like chased around by a ghost, like by demons and stuff like that, and they get like murdered, and it was really scary. We went as a family to watch it.
What? Wait! I think it's crazy that like you did this with your family, because like no one else in my family likes horror or is interested in it at all.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
So honestly, one of my fondest memories of watching horror is me and my brothers and a couple of my cousins, because I come from a big family. Me and my brothers and my cousins watching The Omen, but we didn't just watch The Omen. We like marathoned all of The Omens. I was probably like 14 or 15 or something like that, maybe a little younger. Which I think is still kind of young to be watching horror movies, religious horror especially. But yeah, we started at like 7 p.m. or something. We went to Blockbuster, and we went to Blockbuster, and we rented all these movies on VHS. Actually, no. That might be a little too old, but maybe like DVD at this time.
Yeah.
And we watched like The Omen 1, The Omen 2, The Omen 3, and there was a fourth one. I think it was called like Awakening or something. But we like we finished like very early in the morning, obviously.
Oh my god.
And I remember like my cousins and my brothers like falling asleep, and I was like fighting it so hard because I was just so into it. And that's like going back to the like loving horror so
that
much.
feeling.
That feeling of like, I don't know, maybe, and I now that I think about it, I have a lot of family feelings around horror, which is probably why, we love hosting scary movie nights. But yeah, that was one of my first memories of really being scared, and then that lingering with me after the movie. Yeah. So yeah, very interesting, huh? Oh.
I feel like we're learning about ourselves.
This is the year of realizing things, actually.
realize.
Okay, so what about some of your favorite horror movies? Give me like top 3.
Okay.
Give me your top 3.
I will give you my top 3. I did prep these ahead of time, and I will say these are in no particular order. They're just like crammed up there.
Okay.
I'll start with like the most mild one, but I have chosen Scooby-Doo Spooky Island.
Oh my god, the zombies?
The one where they're like at the theme park. Like with the real people. Oh my god, you haven't seen Spooky Island? It's so good.
So I know
it's got like Freddie Prinze Jr. and like
Oh wait, the live action one.
Oh
one. Yeah, absolutely. I love that movie.
So I love that one.
It's so great. It's camp.
I do think it still qualifies as horror.
Okay.
But it's very camp, and
it's like horror comedy.
Yeah, horror
camp.
comedy for sure. But I don't know. That one just kind of feels like it gives me like nostalgia, and it reminds me of like my childhood.
Yeah.
And I loved watching Scooby-Doo growing
Oh
up.
my god, me too. That was my favorite
Yeah.
show.
My mom would get me Scooby-Doo on VHS.
Oh my god.
And she would get them for me in English because this was when we were in Colombia. So she would get them so I could learn English. So I'd watch Scooby-Doo in English.
That is adorable. So for the young ones watching or listening,
for Gen Z, Gen Alpha.
VHS was this like big block thing with like actual like tape inside of it, but like tape that had like a film recorded on it, and you had to stick this thing into like a player, and you would like rewind it, man. It was like kind of crazy actually, and thinking from there to streaming. But anyway, I digress. Scooby-Doo, what a great movie.
So that's my first movie, Scooby-Doo Spooky Island.
Spooky Island,
so good. Honestly, like I feel like the CGI in that movie is like it was ahead of its time too. I don't know, like like the way they animated Scooby-Doo is like
oh my god, yeah. And look, the writing also was great. I think they did a lot of great things with the characters too. And then the actors delivered it so well.
I feel like they really nailed the casting.
Honestly,
for
yeah,
it.
for real.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
The second movie I've chosen is more of like a serious one.
Okay.
It's Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, very good.
Freaking love that movie.
Actually,
I love a good like detective, like serial killer,
psychological thriller.
Yes. So I love that movie. It's amazing. Clarice.
Yeah. And I love. Yeah, that's a good point. The movie's great. I think it's like very like mood setting too.
I love a movie where it feels like I'm in it. Like I'm like really immersed in the world, and I very much like feel that way in that movie. And something that will make me not like a movie as much is whenever I see something or something happens or they say something that kind of takes me out of it, where I'm like, oh, like I'm out of it. Like the illusion has broken. Like Goofy took off his head at Disneyland, and now I know that he's not real. And then my last one. This is, I think, a modern classic, but The Conjuring 2. The second one specifically.
Yes.
So good.
The best Conjuring movie.
The best Conjuring movie. Yeah. The Nun, Valak, like, genuinely scares me when I go to the bathroom late at night. I'm like looking over my shoulder to make sure that the nun is not there.
Oh my god, this goes back to your
religious
Catholic,
trauma.
The religious trauma.
But no, he was so scary. Like the scene
No,
in
it
the study,
is one of the best.
So good.
Wait, okay. So which scene specifically?
The one where she gets stuck in the study and it like pans because the main character, or what's his face?
Luke Wilson?
Yeah.
No, what is his name? No, Patrick Wilson.
Patrick Wilson. Okay. But he played. Oh my god. They're like the main couple.
Ed Warren.
Ed Warren. We're the biggest horror fans.
Oh my god, I love it.
Yeah. Ed Warren.
Ed Warren.
He like they have like visions and stuff, and so he's painted this portrait of Valak.
Yeah.
And it like pans, it's like you're watching the portrait and like a shadow of the nun like walks into the portrait and then it like comes out at you.
Dude, the director, James Wan, right? He directed that?
I have no idea.
I think he was the one. Exactly. That's literally what I was about to say. Like, he really did that. Because,
so good.
No, that is a fabulous scene. You're absolutely right.
So scary. I think about it all the time.
On a side note, The Nun, like the movie, not so great. The Nun 2, though,
better.
Actually better. I actually really enjoyed The Nun 2.
Better. Did we watch that together? I think.
I don't know. No, I don't think so. No. But I'm really curious if they would. I mean, I guess technically it does tie into The Conjuring. But
I mean, as far as The Nun 2, there's a scene where she's walking past like a magazine stand. And it's like this wind that comes through and like flips all the magazines and it shows the nun.
The nun.
That great.
Fabulous.
So good.
Oh my god.
So
cool. And like the creativity that horror allows you to have too, because like something like that is otherworldly, supernatural. That might not necessarily be in like a movie whose setting is in the real world, if you will. You know what I mean?
And it was like set in like what, like 19 like
Yeah, it was
60s?
back in the day.
Back
Yeah,
in
I
the
don't know.
day, like I love that they cast Thaisa Farmiga as
Yes. Yes.
the nun in that movie. Not the well, she is a nun, but she's not the
Yeah.
nun.
Right.
Because her older sister Vera Farmiga plays Lorraine Warren. So that was really cool, and yeah, I love that scary movies. Like, I don't know, I feel like they're constantly like innovating because like the things that would scare you maybe like 20 years ago, like we know those gimmicks now, so they have to
Yeah.
get really creative with
Yeah.
what they do and with the sound and the cinematography and the lighting, and
Yep.
it's really really cool and interesting. And I've been like I've been like researching for the podcast now, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
whoa,
No, it's really
it's
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, what are your top three?
Okay. So I'm gonna go probably not in any particular order, but I do want to start with this one because I think it is one of my absolute favorite movies, and that's gonna be The Witch. Or The Vivitch.
The Vivitch.
The Vivitch. Which is really cool because so when I first watched the movie, I watched it with Brian, with my husband. And we were both like, what is like this is dumb. Like we could barely first of all, English is my second language, so I was like, I can literally barely understand this person speaking. I had to turn on subtitles literally. But then I went like I think I sat with it for a while, just like kind of absorbed it over like the next like week or so. And then one time when Brian was out, I decided to watch it again with a director's commentary on it with Robert Eggers. And honestly, like it opened so many new things for me because that movie I really started looking at like cinematography and like what kind of shots they use, et cetera, et cetera. And I just love how like his technique of setting the mood really makes the movie.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like you're the whole time in the movie, like you're thinking like something weird supernaturally is going on, but like is it really just in their imaginations or like what kind of like da 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 da. And then at the end, and I'm not gonna spoil it just in case anyone wants to watch The Witch,
But it's been out for like ever, so like
it's been out for yeah. So actually, like skip ahead if you don't want spoilers because I kind of do want to spoil
like
it.
2 minutes.
Yeah. When the goat turns to Satan, I was gagged. Actually, I was with the boots. I was like literally boots the house down, like literally because it was. And then and that voice at the end when he was like, "Dost thou like the taste of butter?" or whatever. Like, it was just like everything in my body, like the buildup was like so worth it. And I could watch that movie anytime. I love that movie so much.
So good. It's so moody. I love Anya Taylor-Joy's performance. She's amazing. She's eyes incredible. Alone. Anya Taylor's eyes, Oscar nominees. Honestly, but I love that movie, and I feel like that movie makes you feel like very lonely and like isolated because they live in this like isolated like house like to the side of the woods. But the movie's never like boring. And I mean the movie's set in like that house like the whole time. Like I don't think they ever go anywhere except for like the woods for a little bit at the end. But it was so good, and I remember when I first watched that movie, it's been a while, but at the beginning it's like I can't tell if she's evil or not, like her family are making her out to be. Yeah. And it makes me like later questions like, was she evil the whole time, or like did all of this questioning from her family drive her to then become evil, or like not necessarily evil but like to like Satan?
Yeah, like honestly I felt like it was the latter. But I don't want to get too much into it because we might do an episode on it later, but yeah, I just really loved, like, you did feel isolated because they are ostracized from their community. And then on top of that, Anya Taylor-Joy's character is ostracized from her family. Yeah. So, like, you feel that extra, like not only layers. Are they multiple, it's layered. Yeah, correct. So, no, I really enjoy that movie. I think Robert Eggers is my favorite director right now for horror. Like current, just because, I really enjoy his movies. My second one, and this is again not really in any particular order, is probably the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I think for a lot of the same reasons. I think the original does a really good job of mood setting. Have you ever watched the original?
I have not.
Oh.
I have not seen it.
Oh, we need to do an episode on that because honestly, like, even though it's definitely older and you can see it like quality of sound and video, etc. It's just such an unsettling movie almost the entire time. And that unsettling like reaches a climax towards the end, and the payoff is also so great. Like there's buildup and a really great payoff. So I think we really like need to do an episode on that. And it was one of the very first best horror movies ever created.
Yeah.
There was Chainsaw Massacre, so there was Halloween. There was Chainsaw Massacre, so there was Scream. All these other movies. So that's definitely like a classic foundation film,
like
I think,
paved
for
the
horror.
way for like slashers.
For sure. I really think that's the case. And then my last one, and I kind of struggled thinking of a third one because I have garbage memory. And like I just love horror so much anyway. But I'm going to agree with you on The Conjuring 2. The Conjuring 2 is absolutely such an incredible film. I mean, it does so many good things. It, again, is really good at mood setting, is really great at the jump scares, and is like, I think it does a good job of taking established characters and developing them even further, and then wondering like, oh my god, what are they going to do next? And I really love that.
Yeah.
Like Conjuring 2 really does a great job of setting up this universe, right?
Yes.
Like the Conjuring universe is so incredible. They have so many great movies, some not so great, but it's like it's almost like the Marvel films of horror, you know what I mean? Which, I have a lot of feelings about that too, but
Ed and Lorraine are the Captain America and Iron Man.
The Avengers of the Conjuring.
Wait, that's so funny.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, though, right?
No,
like
for
they
sure.
have all these stories and they convalesce into this like really great, just like Conjuring 1, 2, and regardless, I think, of your feelings on 3, I really enjoyed Conjuring 3. The Devil Made Me Do It. And I'm really excited for 4, which they are coming out with.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to watch it. Sure. And I didn't not like The Devil Made Me Do It. I just feel like The Conjuring 2 was so good that The Devil Made Me Do It, like, didn't live up to it at all. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. That's your opinion.
It's very... opinion. I do love the story behind it because it is based off of like the first ever trial in the United States where they claim like possession as the motive for murder, which is insane. Yeah.
Literally.
And it's like set in the 70s and like the vibe was pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah.
A lot of I will okay, this is I will say, like, some of the horror in The Conjuring 3 is a little, like, I think it's called, like, ham-fisted. Basically meaning, like they kind of shove it down your throats. You know what I mean? That it's like, okay, when they go a little too far and it's too unrealistic, it takes you out of the movie.
Exactly.
So I think that's probably what happened with The Conjuring 3. For me, I like to describe those types of movies as like junk food movies. Basically it's like it's a lot of empty calories. You might feel like crap afterwards, and you might not
enjoy it.
But you like if you're into it, you'll enjoy the experience.
Or you'll at least be like entertained for like
correct
hour 45 minutes.
Yeah, and that's like, you know what? I'm not mad about that.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm not mad about that.
Me neither.
Yeah. So that's how I feel about The Conjuring 3. But anyway, is there anything else you would like to add before we kind of like start wrapping up episode 0?
I think this is a good foundation.
I think so
everybody
too.
can get a feel for the vibe that we bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think my perspective and like my opinions are definitely not like, they don't come from like I know about movies and I know what's good and bad. But for me, it's all about like how a movie makes me feel personally. Yeah. And sometimes the critics agree and sometimes they don't. And that's okay. That's okay.
Okay, actually, yeah. Like the kind of person that I am, especially when it comes to horror movies, is I'm like a general horror movie enjoyer.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
approach every horror movie from like going in, I already like it.
Same. I just feel like I have really low standards. Like I leave any movie and I'm like, that was great.
Yeah,
That was so
exactly.
good. And then I like see
Exactly.
like Letterboxd or like Rotten
Yeah.
Tomatoes is like
It's like,
30
oh,
on Rotten Tomatoes,
well,
and I'm like,
that is interesting.
okay, well. And then I think about the movie differently, which sucks. So I should really stop looking at that. But
They do nothing to sway me. I'm like, they're
good
wrong,
for you.
actually. I
Good for
loved this
you.
movie. Um, are they all great movies? Probably not. But do I enjoy watching them? Sure. And I think, most movies, especially with horror, there's something to be gleaned from like whatever rough material is there. Um, I try to look into movies as much as I can just to like interact with the content a little more. So yeah, definitely, I get what you're saying. Like, I'm definitely also not coming from a place of like critical review.
Yeah, like a professional. Like,
Right. I don't. I can barely read. I'm just kidding. I can read. But yeah, I'm definitely like a movie enjoyer. So I'm always going to come from a place of like, you know what, this movie had a lot of great qualities.
yeah.
And here's what they are. And I can understand why people think it might not be a quality
Yeah.
movie.
I agree.
Yeah. So I think that about wraps that up, right?
I think so.
Okay. So they can find us on
Our website.
our website, scarymovienights.com. Scarymovienights.com. So if you check out our website, we'll have some info there. You can check out the links to our socials. We are on Instagram, we're on X, we're on TikTok, and we're on Facebook. So scarymovienights.com. Check that out. Follow us. Next episode should be coming out soon.
It should be coming out soon. And if you like look closely, like if you're on YouTube, you might be able to glean something about what movie we'll be
Yeah.
discussing
What?
first.
That's yeah, exactly.
What? What?
All right, Mariana.
Alrighty.
So good to talk to you.
Great to talk to you.
Can't wait to see some scary movies together.
Can't wait.
Bye.
Bye.